Well, it's telling me I'm live, so I must be live. So welcome anyone who's watching, and maybe even watching this back. It's great to see you all here. We've got a couple of guests tonight. It's Rabbie Burns night, so it's nice to honour the beard, honour him, and give him a wee toast. Usually we have some haggis, and it's really strange doing this online and virtual and not having haggis in front of me, which is really, really sad. Because that's what I want. Now, I do have some here in the house. I could make it myself, and that could be, that could be an option. But I couldn't get it out to participants, which really annoyed me. Usually we'd be doing this in a venue, and we could have food brought to us, or we'd, obviously, eating it in a restaurant or something. So great to see everyone. It's 9 whiskies, 9 Scottish whiskies, and we're literally going round around the regions. So we'll go around the 6 regions of Scotland. There's a couple of extras in there for good taste. And yes, morning Shane, and evening Connor. So it's good to see that people are tuning in from different parts of the world to see what we've got. But look, it's Rabbie Burns Day. It's also apparently a birthday for one of our distilleries. So we're going to be drinking Wolfburn. It's going to be our first dram of the evening. So we're going in order 1 to 9, and number 1 tonight is from Wolfburn Distillery. So we're having a Highland whiskey, and we've got the number 155. Okay, so it's a small batch. Okay, the 155, small batch, limited release, 46%. So it's the weakest of the whiskies tonight. We're starting off at 46%, nice and easy. And listen, port cask finish coming from the small batch. So first fill maturation in X, first fill bourbon barrels, so first fill X bourbon barrels. I know, listen, I should have had that beard since Christmas. I know, do you know what? I really need to be groomed. I really need groomed. I really need to be in somewhere, getting the clippers in, getting a proper haircut and stuff. But do you know what? I thought it's rough, it's rugged, it's Scottish, it's all those things, and it's freaking lockdown, which means I can't do what I really want to be doing. But yeah, so port cask finish on here, natural colouring. There's no mucking about. The guys up at Wolfburn are spot on people, and we've had some great encounters already with the guys up there. But it's their birthday, so we can toast them and say happy birthday. We can do that. I think that'd be really good. I think for me, it's about cracking it open. So everyone who has the box tonight, lovely big presentation box tonight, glassware, bottles, all labelled 1 to 9. Number 1 is the Wolfburn. And here, yeah, love that. It's very, very opening nose, absolutely brilliant. We've got the initial vanilla nose on there, which I think is great. Okay, so we've got the initial nose of vanilla, but also a little bit of chocolate. We've done. I've actually done this this exact whiskey. I've done it recently with Mark from Wolfburn, and we've had a really great conversation about this, because their core range stuff is really nice, spot on. It's really it's hitting the mark. Young, remember, really young distillery. The now most northerly distillery in Scotland, overtaking Old Pulteney. Although I believe there's potentially another one coming online, but I think, look, they do right. They do really well with their releases, and I really like these limited runs finishing off in different casks. So this one being the port cask. Yeah, it's warm. It's a warm mouthful, and toffee, honey, but really. And for this time of year, which is really good, because I've just driven around, the vast majority of Northern Ireland today, dropping off boxes. But literally, it's that warmth, that you need from those kind of those kind of deeper fruits, really red kind of berries in here, like red berries, but stewed red berries, really nice on the palate. And the finish is nice. It's not too excellent, Robert. Good to see you this evening from Isla. It's not too short. It's a lovely finish. It's just mid-range finishing here, but has a lovely warmth. Really kind of settles nicely just in the upper part of the chest. Yeah, and a lovely wee hint there. And I'm trying to pinpoint the exact fruits, but it's stewed. Yeah, stewed summer fruits that have managed to make themselves, available just now, in the cold autumn, and then into the winter. Yep, love it. And you know what? Don't be sad for not ordering a box. It was a good uptake. Robbie Burns is revered, here in Northern Ireland as much as he is in Scotland. People really do, follow him. Really have this. He's iconic. If you look at Belfast just now, we're empty, so you can walk around the streets just now. All shops are shut. But if you look up, if you're smart enough to look up in Belfast right now, you will see on every street in the city centre, you'll see Robert Burns' face. Do we see that in Glasgow? Do we see that in Edinburgh? Do we see that in Dundee or Aberdeen? Do we see Robbie Burns' face everywhere you look at this time of year in those big cities? I'm not sure, but Belfast does. Belfast really goes all out, and shows us images of Robbie Burns and keeps us, thinking about him. So, he's influential, isn't he? He's influential here, influential in Scotland. I think he's a worldwide influence. He's got this whole, diaspora of people who believe in maybe what he's been writing about. One of our guests tonight, David Pratt, he usually, and I have to say usually, comes in with the bagpipes and pipes in the haggis, and unfortunately we just don't have that opportunity. We don't have that opportunity, and he's actually going to come on and do some poetry for us, which I think is cracking. And maybe we'll talk a little bit about, from Dave's perspective, what Robbie means to certain people, and I think that'd be very important. And it'd be nice to see people in the comments talking about Robbie and what they think of him. I will come out and say, I do think they love these women, I love these whiskey, I love this song, and they're things that I think we can all relate to in certain ways. Oh, that's good, Gareth. I'm glad you found the 155 sample. It's just worth tucking into. But yeah, and good to see you, Michael. So yeah, perfect. Look, I hope people enjoyed that one. I know that we've got a couple of people in the wings that we can bring on and have an interesting chat. And look, we'll go some of these whiskies. I hope really interest people and really get people's imagination, and hopefully we can on the Instagram page, on the Facebook page, you'll see me putting up the pictures of these bottles, a little description about them, so you won't be lost. You can go back on, have a look at it, maybe find out where it's been, you can purchase it at. If it gets, raving reviews, maybe people have tried them, maybe people want to tell us what they think of them. But yeah, so Connor, there was an Irish cigarette brand called Sweet Afton that had Burns' portrait in the front. Yeah, Sweet Afton. Yeah, you're quite right. A lot of that memorabilia, Sweet Afton memorabilia. If you go into the Duke of York, go upstairs into the rooms up there, you'll see a lot of that advertising from Sweet Afton up there. Here in Belfast, quite specific with that. I actually didn't even think about that. But there's so much advertisement with Burns on it. That I say very iconic, an iconic figure. Thanks very much for the link there. I will not click it just now. I will go and click it at a later date. But thank you very much for that. Listen, Wolfburn Highlands region number 1 sorted. We've done the Highlands. Yeah, we've been there. We've done that. We've tasted it. I liked it. It's nice. It's warming. It's a young liquid, and again, it's out of this. We're going actually in ages. So this is a non-age statement. So this is our first one, non-age statement. The rest we're going in order of its malt age. You know, so we're kind of running through in terms of its age. But the rest are cask strength. So it was really hard for me to kind of, do I go down the ages, or do I go down in the cask strengths? What do I give people first? What do I give people last? And that was very tough. So I went with ages only. And particularly because it's a birthday, or it's a celebration of Burns specific on the day, but Wolf Burns' birthday, anniversary, let's run it through here. And his sister Agnes is buried in Dundalk. Wow. Now, I didn't know that specific, but I'm sure if I'd Googled him as much as possible, I'd have found that. So his sister Agnes, which I think is one of those great names. If people don't know the name Agnes, I don't know how common it is here in Ireland, but Agnes is pretty common in Scotland in certain parts, and actually a lot of people favour the reverse of that name. So I have a lot of friends they're christened Agnes, but they don't call themselves Agnes. They call themselves Senga, and the reverse of the name, which I think is one of those interesting wee names that you can reverse and have a bit of fun with. But like people shortening Margaret to Peggy, and having a bit of fun. Senga is always one of those names that kind of confuse people. Good, that Garth. Yeah, maybe some of the Wolf Burns stuff hit and miss, but this one is a nice variant. Yeah, and look, I hope people do come round and have a good chat with it. So look, we're going to leave that one aside. We're going to move on. I want to take the Hazelburn before we bring in some of our guests. I want to rattle on with another wee drink here. So all the way down to Campbeltown, and we're looking at not the Springburn. Yeah. Okay, we're looking at the Hazelburn, and we've got a 10-year-old single casking here, 55.4%. So that's 55.4%. Refill Sauterines cask, right? Limited to 282 bottlings and bottled off in 2018. 10 years old, cask strength, refill Sauterines cask. Originally, I think this bottle went all the way out to Israel. I don't think it was sold here. I think it went to Israel to be sold. But yeah, that's number 2 in your box. So number 2 in your box. And I think that, I picked this one. I mean, I suppose it's easy for me to pick Campbeltown. We've got plenty. We've got Glen Scotia. We've got, the mighty Springbank specific. But the Hazelburn, triple distilled, and I'm thinking the connection here, with Irish whiskey, the triple distilled element to everything. Triple distilled is not common practice in Scotland. Not common at all. We've got literally a handful of distilleries that have that practice of triple distilling, and Springbank to me would be one of those. It's just a memorable, distilling, heritage with family and a big connection to Belfast. So if we talk about the Mitchells and we talk about the Mitchells of Belfast and the Mitchells of Campbeltown, this is the same family. It is the same people. We've got a direct link between a massive, Belfast brand and distillery through Mitchells with the connection with the Springbank distillery. So look, Hazelburn is part of that distilling family at Springbank and Campbeltown. This, oh my lord. Do you know what? It's like big peaches or something, peaches in a kind of in a syrup, and you've taken them out, and you're maybe going to have it with ice cream or something. I don't know what you're going to have it with. Maybe custard. I used to have tin fruit and custard, but that is a beautiful smell. The nose on that is unlike, it's unlike many whiskies that I've had in the past. That's big and bold on the nose. And do you know what? I'm expecting it to be punchy here. And we've got alcohol, so I'm expecting there to be a big kick on the taste. That does not let you down. chunky, thick, really thick, and really condensed. That condensed flavour that I just spoke about. That it is a massive fruit. Yeah, it's definitely this. You know, apricots, peaches. It's screaming. You know, that kind of tinned fruit with the syrup. That's what it's screaming. You know, and really well balanced. Oh my lord, the finish is just superb because it just encroaches upon your mouth and then just starts to warm. Another warm, really warm whiskey. I know I've been out in the cold all day. I know it's freezing here, and I was a wee bit late getting on because actually driving around Northern Ireland, dropping off whiskey boxes, it's pretty damn hairy at the time, you know, this time of year. You know, there's roads with just ice. I mean, there's just the ice and snow. There is just no. I mean, we literally had a flurry of snow for, I think, one day of snow this year, and all of a sudden the entire country comes to standstill. I mean, I'm going to blame Phil Crawford. If Phil Crawford listens to this, I'm going to blame him. He's something to do with gritting roads. So if he hears me, I went round today on some of the smallest little roads that we have, and I was like this. You know, I was all over the place. But I'm wondering whether or not, because I've been out in the cold all day, if these are just warming me up, keeping me nice and warm, because this is lovely and warm. I'm going to have to come back to this one as well. I think I want to come back to them and talk about them a little bit more, maybe with some of my guests. But look, I'm going to bring on Dave, because I think, look, it's about Rabbie Burns, but it's not. It's about the whiskey, but it's about Rabbie Burns, and we should really have Dave to come on and look. Let's listen a little bit to some of the poetry, and maybe we'll get a wee political debate on the go. I like this. You know, it's nice to have a bit of banter. I know some people don't like mixing whiskey and politics. I don't really care. I think it's all for the, you know, we're all chatting. Politics to me is everything, and nothing at the same time. You know, just like whiskey. Look, we'll bring him on. Let's see if we can do this. Add to stream. Hello, are we ready, Dave? You can give me a wee wave if you are. Yeah, he's always ready. Dave,
I'm ready. Yes. Can you hear me okay, Paul?
100%. I like you're flying.
Perfect. I liked your little chat there about Robert Burns' sister Agnes being in Dundalk. She died at the age of 82. There's a big pillar in the graveyard, or there's a big pedestal to Robert Burns built down there in 1859, 100 years exactly after Robert Burns was born. And there was a big community. And the reason why they did it, the cigarettes are called Swift Afton, was in a pilgrimage and an honor to his pedestal being there. And they kept them going until about maybe 30, 40 years ago. So there you go. And that's a little bit trivia for you. She lived till she was 82. And her husband was the gamekeeper of the main big kind of estate round there. And he built it all up. He was from Scotland as well. But he was a good 30, I think she was 16, 17 years older than she was. And obviously he died, and she stayed there to the rest of her days. Funnily enough, there's a Burns Club in Belfast, and they have an annual pilgrimage down there around about the July fortnight, and they go down there and have a look and see what's going on. So if any of your people and listeners want to get involved in that, just give you a call, and then you can give me, and I'll pass it on to Brian Cassidy. You know.
Yeah.
Now,
I just want to quiz you on that. Dundalk. I mean, like, what makes a lady from Ayrshire, you know, settle in Dundalk? Is it just the fella she meets? What's the draw for women in that period?
Absolutely.
To go to Dundalk.
Absolutely. It was her husband. Her husband got a job as a market gardener, and he ended up being taken on by the estate. I do an immortal memory around this over here, and I wish I could remember it to my mind, but it's very interesting stuff. She lived over here for, I think it was 45 years, maybe. She married late in life. Fantastic. And she was very proud of her brother. And she never lost her Ayrshire twang, and people found her very hard to understand. There you go. We're all called that.
I can imagine.
Now,
especially when they're not.
as you can see, I have to, obviously, I think I've met a few of you before because I've done one or two bits and pieces with you in the past, Paul,
Yeah.
and you can see I'm wearing this tartan jacket, and I can assure you, the only reason I got this jacket was because I was bored in lockdown when I was furloughed by my work. And you know yourself, you get onto the internet, and I saw this tartan dinner jacket, and I thought, this is a cut of my jib. However, nobody allows me to wear it with the wife, so now, anytime I get a chance, it's going on, and I can't really be held accountable for what I wear. I was going to say, Paul, what I will do, if it's okay with you, is we'll start off with one wee poem that everyone knows, and then maybe, you can cut me in later on. I'll maybe do a couple more. One I'll do just now, obviously, is the Address to the Haggis, because that's what everyone knows.
Yes.
And then we'll take it from there. As you were alluding to, more than happy to get involved in any political discussion that you want to do.
Good.
And I might even tell you in the fullness of time other bits and pieces, but we'll take it from there, and we'll start off with the Address to the Haggis, and hopefully you'll enjoy this, ladies and gentlemen. And I believe there's people from all over the world, and I wish you a good St. Andrews, not St. Andrews Day, Burn Supper Day.
Well,
I hope everything's going well. So we'll start for your Address to the Haggis, and it goes some. Normally I'm standing up and doing this and going around the country, and there's normally haggis on the ceiling, haggis on the floor, haggis on the windowsill, and normally haggis on the door. So we try and keep it a wee bit away from that just now. But here we go. Prayer for your honest sonsy face, great chieftain of the pudding race. Boon them all, you tack your place, plain stripe or fair. Wheel, are you worthy of a grace? As long as I am. Your groaning trencher there you fill, your hurdy's like a distant hill. Your pen would help to mend the mill in time of need, and through your pores the dews distill like amber bead. His knife, see rustic, labour dict, and cuts you up with ready sight, trenching your gushing entrails breath like on a ditch. Then oh, what a glorious sight, warm, reeking rich. Then horn for horn they'll stretch and strive, deal back the hindmost on the drive, for all the wheels felt, heights alive, are bent like drums. And all good men miss like to ride, they thank it hums. Is it that o'er your French ague or olio that would stir us through a fricassee would mark you spew with perfect skinner, looks doon without such a sneering view and sick a dinner. Poor dear Paul, over his trash, as freckless as a withered rash, his spindle shank a gid whip lash, his knee a knit, through bloody floods or fields to dash, oh how unfit. But, mark, the rustic haggis fed, the trembling earth resounds his tread, taking his valley lever blade, he'll make it whistle, and legs and airns and heeds, all sned, like taps of thistle. Ye powers that mak mankind your care and dish them out their bill of fare, old Scotia's want nae stinking wares like jougs and luggies, but if you wish her grateful prayer, gie her a haggis. Slán Java.
Slán Java, indeed. And listen, Dave, thank you. And I'm thinking that some people might have had some haggis at home. Maybe they've cooked it themselves. Maybe they've done that. That would be great, you know. It's iconic, isn't it? It's just iconic with Burns, with Burns suppers. You didn't get away from it, you know, and it's always going to be said. You know, it's always going to be said.
The haggis was very hard got over here, as you're probably very aware. St. Andrews Society here in Belfast, and I'm very proud to do so. And a lot of the members were finding haggis very, very hard to get. And I don't know if that's to do with the new Brexit
possibly
regime that's come through. I'm not casting any dispersions, but it's certainly been an issue for a lot of my membership, and I'm sure a lot of your friends as well.
Do you know what? As I say, I have some here, and unfortunately, just because of my timing issues with the ice and stuff today and the snow, I wasn't able to get home and cook it for myself. But I have the Scott Howie stuff, you know, from Perth. So I managed to get that, and that's coming in from the Sainsbury's, you know. So I've managed to get that there from the Sainsbury's, you know. But Yeah, I think we've seen that recently, and even the last couple of years. Remember, I think we spoke about this, the lack of haggis. We used to be some
It's
good butchers.
there's
You
still
had
one guy
haggis.
there's a guy in Moira that makes his own stuff, and he's been doing that for years. But there used to be a guy in East Belfast as well. They used to make it too, but I'm not too sure. Not too sure where he is now.
Well, do you know, I was let down tonight because what I wanted to do, because I knew that we couldn't, I couldn't just go around and give everyone little bits of haggis. I couldn't do that. That just would have been impractical. But what I was going to do, I was going to try and get pizza ordered. Now, I'd used pizza places before, and we got haggis on the pizza. Now, the two places I've used in the past for pizzas no longer do them. And I'm like, what's the change from last year to this year? What's the difference? There is no difference. And you should be offering it, I think I took, last year maybe 4 or 5 haggis pizzas from one place, specifically. I'm not even going to give them the name on here to give them any business. I'm going to say I'm disappointed in the 2 places specifically. One's a major chain across the whole of the UK, and the other one's a local chain to Belfast, Manchester, and Glasgow. But it's very disappointing, because I wanted to get pizza out to people, and it was probably the quickest way to do it. Disappointed at the end, when I phoned round, they went, "Nope, not this year."
But it's a hard thing. It's a hard sell, Paul, because we first met each other when I was selling haggis, and you got in touch with me many years ago. Now,
Yes.
before you had the beard, when I had hair, and before I was white, and it was a few years ago. But there's a guy. You've heard of McSween's haggis. Now, I used to do a lot of Burn Summers with Jimmy McSween, and Jimmy McSween's a very good friend of mine. And when I came over here, I've been over here 10 years, and he said, "Look, Dave, would you mind trying to punt my haggis in Ireland? I'll give you the best rates possible." And of course I went. I'm not a salesman, but I'll try my best. Hardest sell in the world, because over here, you have haggis one day. In Scotland, you'll have haggis maybe once or twice a month, if not more. Here, it's once a year, and it was a very hard sell, and it's very hard to get that,
Yeah.
Which is a shame, because I think it's a great staple food that does says what it says.
For people who know me, I've had a lot of jobs, right? I've had a lot of jobs, and I've always been in work. Since 15, I've always had a job, right? I made it quite clear. Didn't matter what I did. I mean, I might have, I don't know how many letters I have after my name from being at university for so many years as well. Always had a job. One of the jobs I had, I worked at a BT call centre a long time ago, but they had their own food van outside. They had their own restaurant inside, but outside was a wee food van always there. And here every day I must have put on, I don't know how much weight I put on, but every day I went out there and I got myself a wee sub roll. I made them make it for me. Sub roll, mozzarella cheese, haggis, cooked, like a panini would be cooked, but in a sub roll, Unreal. And you add a wee bit of sweet chili sauce to that, you're flying. But that was a daily occurrence. Haggis was, it's served daily in places. It's served daily in
Absolutely.
wee food van. I think once you get it, you get it. I mean, once you
absolutely,
like it,
I think once tasted, you never move on. I still to this day have a wee slice of haggis like back pudding with an egg on top, and it's fantastic in a roll. But that's
unreal, unbelievable.
But then again, you don't get to 20 stone without trying these things,
And here you were saying, but you have lost weight. I mean, you have done. I mean, you've done incredibly well.
I did. I lost about 5 stone. I lost 6 inches off my chest, 11 inches off my waist. So
wow,
did okay.
But
you've got to try,
impressive. It's pretty impressive. I mean, I'm impressed with that.
Thank you very much, Paul. But
no,
I'll let you carry on with your
I think we should do here. I think we should just move on to the next whiskey, the third whiskey. Yeah.
Perfect.
And we should do that. Do you want to stay on screen, or do you want to?
I'll let you take the center stage and get me back when you want
back
me.
on. Good man. Right, we'll do that. Okay. Thank you very much.
See you nice. Thanks very much so far.
So yeah, that was great. Great to have the address of the haggis, even though we don't have lots of haggis around us. So I'm sorry for that, but Belfast Whisky Club, in normal state, normal place, that's what we do. We have the food, and we don't let people down, in regular time. Okay, so we're going to move on to whiskey number 3. So whiskey number 3 is another single malt. We've gone from a 10-year-old. I said we're going, kind of in a numerical order. We're going to go for an 11-year-old Speyside. Okay. Again, it's port. So we've got port influence. This time it's fully matured in port. Okay, so here we go. If everyone can see that label. So it's now I say Glenallachie, but I'm sure other people would say it completely differently. But I'm going to say Glenallachie. Okay, Glenallachie, and that's what I'm going to go with. So we've got an 11-year-old, again, dated on 2018, 60%. Look at this big, bold alcohol coming through here. But yes, full port pipe maturation, distilled in 2007. So yeah, part of the single cask range. Let's have a wee pop. Is just great. Pop is great. But I think the colour on this one is just absolutely superb. It's got this really kind of pink hue coming through here. Just a slight pink hue. Well, we're not being let down with that smell. It smells great. And again, I know with the first one, it was automatic. We had that vanilla. We don't get that vanilla. We're not getting that at all. That we got from the Wolf one. You're funny, Sean. Sean, you're funny. Yeah. Instead, what we're getting specifically here is that kind of rich, kind of figgy note, and an orange peel potentially on the nose, which is really nice. Yeah. I know we know we're going to get a lot of alcohol here, so 60%, be careful, you've got 50 ml, measures there. Just be careful, keep some for a rainy day. Wow. Really, that's just a lot of. I took a big mouthful there, and there was a lot to get through. It was a lot of full-on flavour. Big on boiled sweeties. There's even a hint of towards the very end, like a coffee note, like a really kind of roast coffee note, which is really nice. But it's that really big stewed fig note, stewed fruit. It's even got the kind of biscuity part of those figgy biscuits that you get. That's really, really full on. I wasn't expecting it to be as full on as that. The heat is great. The heat is just really warm and feeling within your mouth, and it kind of starts to slowly go down. The actual finish on this is big. Yeah, and then it's not, I thought it was going to dry out my mouth a lot more. Maybe it's because I took a bigger mouth. Maybe I thought it was going to really dry out. It doesn't dry out as quickly as I thought it might have done. I'm expecting that port pipe maybe to dry out quicker. It doesn't. It lasts a bit of time. I really like that. It's quite a sensible port casking. And for those who aren't drinking this and they're just tuning in, prime example of full maturation in port, really not letting the spirit down, really bulking out that spirit. Yeah, I really like that. I'm just concerned at how many bottles there was. 804 bottles. I'm sure this is still available. I think this is something that still could be purchased. there was that many of the single casks that were coming out of this distillery in recent times, you know. But yeah, for those that don't know where we are, Glenallachie, based Aberlour, lovely part of Scotland. You know, always talked about, always wrote about. You know, always in people's minds, it's one of those places, the gateway to the Highlands, they say. You know, and that kind of that kind of valley. It's in Speyside, so yeah, that's lovely. It's just lovely. Like, I'm really impressed with that. I hope other people got what I was getting there, which is a full on flavour, full on fruit. Don't want to put that one down. Although I'm thinking that Hazelburn is the nose is difficult to beat on the Hazelburn just now. And because we went for that 46% at the start, this is a lot of alcohol. We're rushing into a lot of alcohol. It's funny that Sean talks about peat. I think we're going to have to move around. So we've got the Highlands out the road. We've been down to the Campbeltown, the wee nook, the wee crag, the wee offshoot, and then we've taken a wee trip back up into the Speyside. But we're going to move on. I think we have. Let me have a look here. So yeah, so bottle number 4, okay, and this is where you would. After this one, we're going to cleanse our palate, okay. But we've got this one here, is an Islay whiskey, okay. So we've got an 11-year-old, so money statement 10-year-old, 11-year-old, another 11-year-old comes in at 57%. So 57% on the bottom, okay. Distilled in 2008. Using only refilled ex-bourbon hogshead. Okay. This one comes from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society. All right. There we go. So the Islay region. Yeah. And there's the wee number up there if you need to go and find it yourself. Okay. 53.318. So each one of them obviously is numbered. So this is Cale Islay distillery. Okay, so people can go and find that. I like what it's called here, Entropy Meridian. A lighter side of the Islay classic, subtle, philosophical, intellectual, evasive, and yet totally enthralling, while away the ennui of life. They always write some mad bollocks on the bottles there. You know, don't they? It's just, where did they come up with this? I'd love to be the person that comes up with it, by the way. I'd love to say, you know, Paul, would you just write me something for the front of our bottles? Because I would write some amount for them. Do you know what I mean? I don't even need to bleep myself out. I'd write some amount of shite on the front of it for the crack. But, you know, some of it's poetry. And I think that, you know, harken back to Robbie Burns, there's poetry on each one of these bottles. You know what I mean? Specifically the kind of more modern outruns. But yeah, we're going to need a wee bit of palate cleansing after this. You know, I'll probably take in some chocolate. But yeah, Islay whiskey, Cale Islay. That's a lovely wee nose. Yeah, I like that. A wee wisp of a fireplace there. Just a wee wisp. It's got that kind of medicinal note that we can expect. I like that. It's very floral. You know, it's got a lovely floral kind of aspect coming on here. But lots of alcohol. Remember, 57%. 11 years old, young. You know, but you know, standard Cale Islay 8-year-old, isn't it? 10-year-old, 12-year-old. They've got 11 years old. Oh, that's nice. A little bit ashy. Lingers a little bit there. Very sweet. So very, very sweet. Ashy. Just the lovely kind of wisp that you need. It's not overpowering at all. It's very, very delicate. Does it come across as an 11-year-old? That's going to be an interesting question for me, I think. It's kind of got that kind of greeny kind of grass. A wee grassy note there. Definite, like a citrusy note, like lemon, but florally. I really like that wee whiff of smoke. I'm thinking it's just enough. The sweetness is quite welcoming, I think, with that, peatedness. Smokiness is lovely. I like the fact that I keep drinking this one. This is one of those. I always get my head with a K-Ale. I'm a fan of them, and I know that some people don't just get it as a distillery. I just really like it, and it is a classic. It is an Islay classic. Don't be frightened to pick up a K-Ale and go for it. Have a dram. But this is really good. It's a nice example. I'm liking the fact that we're able to just go and straight on ex-bourbon hogshead, no messing about. 11 years. See what the spirit looks like. Brendan Carty, don't be so silly. You're missing this because you didn't pay for a box. Don't think it's anything to do with your school night. Sure. Did I say that out loud? Is that even going live? Probably did go live. I didn't mute myself. Look, it's good to see you coming on in here and having a wee juke. And listen, K-Ale is lovely. I'm trying to think, where are we next? Let me just look here. Yeah, okay. So as I say, we're trying to go around the regions, but we're also doing it in a kind of mad fashion. In terms of numbers, we're just going with the age statements or the age of the whiskey. I'm not a Trump. I'm glad you said Trump and not Trump. I've been called worse, is what I could have said there. Cheers, Brendan. Yeah, I'm liking what we've tasted so far. I don't think I've been let down yet, and sometimes although I've had the 155, I haven't from the Wolfburn. I haven't had the rest. Not in these guises. So I've had obviously Hazelburn before. I've had K-Ale before. I've had the Carnallachy before, but not in these guises. So this is nice to see. So far, they're not disappointing. I'm going to bring in only because I know he's sitting there with his headphones. Do you want to come in now? You're more than welcome for a chat. Yeah, you want to come in? We're going to bring in now. So he's sitting here for the banter. I know there's some other people that we can bring in, but we'll bring in now. Let's have you come in. There you go, now.
Not so bad.
Good. Yeah, a lovely wee collection of model toys in the background, isn't it? Yeah.
That's the Lego.
Yeah, that's some retro collecting going on there. Yeah. Brilliant. What do we here? Do you ever remember Skeletric cars? Were you ever a fan of Skeletric cars? No.
Not really. Kind of passed me by.
No, I remember I always like when I was younger. I loved these Skeletric cars, and I always went to these wee model shops, and always went for the coolest, rarest little Skeletric cars. And then I remember getting to my late teens and smashing them all up. Just smashing them up, just going, this is useless. Who needs a trigger thing? Not me. I've got a computer game here right now. Not me. Mm-hmm. I'm sitting here with my Sega. I'm sitting here now, playing FIFA 97. It's perfectly fine. Who needs Skeletric? And then, revisiting Skeletric maybe 10 years later and realising that it's worth a fortune, and every one of their dogs collected the Knight Rider card that I had, that I smashed up. And and the Dukes of Hazzard cars, and just such a complete pain in the hole. I remember someone, I don't know who it was, someone in my family had purchased an extension kit of my Skeletric's kit, right? So I got it as a present. It was a wee add-on thing, and I could add it onto my main set, and it came with a really different power pack. The power pack that you got for Skeletric was kind of wee boxy thing. This thing came when it was a big cylinder thing. It was about that size. It was double the size. It was big. per kit, big massive power pack. And I remember being able to use that power pack for my entire track, which at this point managed to race around my entire house. I was like, it was a super power pack, and you can have like 4 cars, so 2 cars on each track at the same time. It was that powerful. I remember I'm just talking shite now, but it was just one of those things. Like, just looking at the stuff behind you, going, I can remember those things. Remember that, and we kit got smashed up. Now, what do you make of the first 4? What's your thoughts? Are we enjoying the tasting set tonight?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Some great stuff there. The Hazelburn. Yeah, Hazelburn's incredible.
What is that nose all about?
It's getting a bit of rhubarb in there. A bit of rhubarb. That's excellent.
Yeah. Okay.
But I'm enjoying this as well now. Excellent.
It's really. Do you know what? Is it not just this really delicate Islay?
It is. Yeah.
Delicate, isn't it? And it's just the amount of alcohol is just right. I mean, it just sits in your mouth perfectly, and really, but that wee whiff, that wee of the smokiness, just engulfs the mouth, and it fades away without it leaving that bitter, ashy taste. It's got a lovely ashy note at the very end, which is lovely. Just it tails off at the right time, and sometimes you're left with an Islay that just clogs up the back of your mouth and becomes really dry, and you have to go and drink again to get that wetness back in there. I didn't feel the need.
It is so sweet as well.
Very sweet.
Which I think goes very well with the peat.
Yeah. And a lot of people might not like that sweetiness on Islay whiskies, and they might not enjoy that. I just felt, with this kind of effort, let's try and look at different varieties, and we will come back to there's another Islay later on. As I say, we're doing the 6 regions, but we'll come back to another Islay which isn't peated. So we're going to a non-peated Islay later. But look, let's crack open the other one when you're here now, and we can do it together. So we're going back to Speyside, and we're going for a 16-year-old. Okay, so we've moved up. We've gone from 11-year-old up to 16-year-old. 59.8%. Again, lots more alcohol. And this time, second fill bourbon barrel to start with. And then we go into an XPX butt. All right. Sounds a little bit familiar now. We did a Highland Park the other day. Now you might not have been in on that tasting. We did a Highland Park 15-year-old. Similar kind of production run there. It was in the bourbon cask, ended up in the PX cask, and for me, it's probably one of the most outstanding Highland Parks I've ever tasted. Do you know what I mean? So this time we're looking at a Speyside. So a Longmorn, 16-year-old Longmorn, you can't go wrong there. Do you know what I mean? Can you? And there we go. It's called the Twinning. It was part of the global gathering for the Longmorn. Yeah. So yeah, here we go. I'm gonna pour it in here. Look there, I'm just reading some of this crack. Yeah, Michael Matthews says he was an actual fan, and just Davis is putting you out there. Was a fan of the Sweet Afton. Start of the decline, he says. Start of the decline. I'm not sure if is that the decline of the cigarettes or your decline, Michael. I'm hoping it's the start of the decline of the cigarettes at that point. Yeah. So Longmorn, 16-year-old. First of all, it's in the the second fill bourbon barrel, and then first fill XPX butt to finish. The nose is lovely, isn't it? Really spicy wee nose going on there. Yep, spicy wee nose. There's a little bit of vanilla on the nose, and a little bit of vanilla coming through in the taste, but actually a little bit like brown sugar and spice on the initial taste on the tongue. No, I like that, like treacly, and then it becomes really spicy. So then the second one is a lot more spice encroaching across the whole of the tongue. Oh, smoky, like barbecue smoky. like not like smoky, but barbecue sticky smoky, like that kind of
Yeah.
right off the meat smokiness. That's really nice. Well, no, I like that. Yeah.
I was smelling a lot of the wood, not tasting the wood so much.
On the you're smelling the PX, aren't you? You're smelling the PX cask. You're smelling that cask, and you're getting that spicy note coming through there. Very, very hint, like, you know, you're going to go and find it, but you can smell that little bit of vanilla. You know, it's not. It's been masked by the PX. But that, oh my, yeah, sticky, barbecuey, like taste coming on there. Really liking that. What does it say? A spicy, fruity aroma was followed by candied lemon peel and roasted walnuts. 2-second fill bourbon barrels combined into a first PX. But okay, yeah, no, I'm liking that. There is something strong about this. There's a strength about this one. Really kind of catches you in here, just into the breastbone, doesn't it? Compared to the other ones, this is hitting the breastbone. Yeah. It's gone down further than the other ones. The other ones.
I was going to say, with just the last one there, I wouldn't have picked it out as strong as it is. But this one, you know, it's got the alcohol in it.
It's got the alcohol. It's got it's longevity. It's got like a long, lingering, you know, maneuvering going down that body. Yeah, unlike the other ones, definitely like the first four, didn't get that far down here. Here, yes, nice upper chest kind of warmth in the first two particularly, but then this one, it's going down. It's going down, and I've taken less of this one in my mouth. You know, less in this one, and I've not gone back to it as much as the other ones, and still, I can taste that. Like I'm still tasting that right now. I'm still getting it. You know, it's still in there, and it's really. There's a lovely wee fruit, which is something really wants me to say, like it's I want to say pineapple, right? And that's really strange because it has that kind of really strange kind of pokey, sweet kind of note, which goes with that pepper, you know, that kind of peppery note. But whether or not it's like barbecued pineapple on top of the gammon, on top of the rib, and it's just the sauce is just pouring all over it. Is that what it is? Because it is lovely. I like that. Oh, Michael says he gave up the cigarettes and moved on to whiskey. Yes, you're quite right. The downfall, the decline started at that point, indeed. But you know what? I believe the liver, you can have a liver transplant. Correct me if I'm wrong. I doubt very much you can have a lung transplant at the moment. I don't think that's one of those organs that we haven't managed to really get, you know, to grips with. So I don't know. Maybe you made a better choice. Like, I've never smoked. I've always been an alcoholic. I mean, a drinker. I mean, I'm someone who appreciates alcohol more than cigarettes. But yeah, you like that now? Is that good? Yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Definitely full on.
Like you can tell Robert he's missing out. You can say, Robert, you're missing some crackers here tonight. You can make him cry. You know, and that's okay. Like it's okay. I'm not going to wind them up very much. Tell him how good it is. So like, listen, you can come back on later on now. Yeah, we'll get you back on for a bit of banter. Sure, why not? I'll take you off just now. Okay.
Cheers.
No bar. Yeah. Okay. So we've had five. I think there's no harm for maybe a wee poem here just now, because I know we've got a couple. We'll do a wee poem here just now. We'll move on to another two whiskies, and then we'll maybe have another poem. Maybe go for the three, you know, the three poems in total. We may have like I know if you know Dave doesn't mind, then maybe we go for something, I don't know, really light-hearted right now, or a wee bit like, you know, I know he's into love and stuff. I don't know if you've got a loved one. I'm into love, you know, sharing the love. I know Rabbi was as well. So we'll bring Dave back on here. Are you okay to come back on? He's good. He's flying. He's loving it. Yeah,
absolutely. You were talking about smoking there. You were talking about smoking there. I would say I was a professional smoker. But of a pal who, my personal physician, I went to school with this guy and we called him Barney because when we all played in the pipe band at school, and when we went on a pipe band trip to the Glasgow Highland Club Invitational when we were still at school, had a bottle of martini and his eyes made him look like Barney Rubble, and he's been Barney ever since. This guy is the top neurosurgeon in the East Midlands down in England. And he was my personal physician, and we both smoked like chimneys. And he always said to me, and I don't know how true this is, but see if you give up smoking by the time you're 40, then by the time you're 50, all the badness is out of your system. So I tried that. Hopefully it'll work. If not, I'm back on 40 a day in the morning if I get lung cancer, but that's another story.
No, that's. I think they do. You just can't get replacement ones. I don't think, but your body can start to heal. Your body's a big machine.
I always used to see. Remember that photograph doing the rounds back in the day with a wee mouse going around with an ear in its back.
Yes.
I used to think there was one with a heart or a set of lungs on for me at one of the time, but that's another story.
I was going to say a poem, yeah, but don't give me Timorous Beastly just now. I would like that later if you could.
I'll go and hunt for that as we speak, but we'll get it for you. No, I've got one. I'll tell you what I'll do. I've got one of two that I can do just now, and I'll leave it up to you which one we want.
Super.
I can either do, as you know, Paul, I see I'm getting out of the way there. As you know, I work normally in the Seamus Heaney home place. And Seamus Heaney, obviously the man who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1995, he got invited to go to a Burns supper in the Balmoral Hotel in Edinburgh just after he got his big gong from the Swedes. And he wrote this poem to talk about it, and he tried to make it very light and very funny. We can do that one, or I can do one called John Barleycorn, which is all about.
Listen, I want a bit of Seamus Heaney. Let's have a bit of a bit of appreciation. There's no.
Well, Seamus Heaney is a great guy. Lived most of his life down in the Republic, but obviously comes from Balachi in West or Mid Ulster, where I come and live just now. And he wrote this poem. It's called "Burial for Burns," and he wrote it for this Burns supper at the Balmoral Hotel when he was invited over there, and it goes like this. And I'm afraid I'm going to have to read this one as well, but it goes, "Burial for Burns. From the start, Burns' burrow and rhythm, that tongue the Ulster Scots brought with them, and sticking still in County Antrim was in my ear, from the east of the Bann, it westward in on Derry Air. My neighbours tubbed and bummed and blowed, they happened themselves until it thawed. By slaps and styles they thawed and tholed and snedded thistles, and when the rigs braked and hoed, they wet their whistles. Old men and women getting crabbit, they'd heart like dogs who'd seen the rabbit, then straight and stare and have a stab at stabbing habby. Custom never staled their habit of quoting Rabbi. Leg lifting, heartsome, lightsome burns, he overflowed the well-wrought turns, like buttermilk from slurping churns, rich and unruly, or dancers flying doing turns at some wild hoolie. For Rabbi's free and Rabbi's big, his stanza may be tight and trig, but once he set the sail and rig, away he goes, like Tam O'Shanter rove the brig, for no one follows. And through his first tongue's going, gone, the words list now and added on, even the words like strawn and thrawn have had to be glossed. In Burns's rhyme, they travel on and won't be lost. Thank you very much.
Cheers.
So that was my, but we'll leave it there. And the only other thing I would say, there's you might not know this, I'll leave this to you before we do Sleek at Cuireann Timorous Beastly, is one of his big songs was called My Love She's But a Lassie Yet. And everyone thinks it's about the girls that he was courting, but it was actually about whiskey when he was an exciseman, and if you can stand a year or two, you'll not be half as saucy yet. And that's what he was talking about. So I'll let you go and have your chocolate,
I just want you to. I was thinking there, right? You know, the Seamus Heaney, like that's such a compliment, isn't it? For one poet to write about another poet, to really actually and nearly in the style of Robbie Burns.
Well, he was trying to copy the Tam O'Shanter stanza. Not that I'm a big
Yes.
poet yourself, but he was trying to change writing that way. Until I went there, to be brutally honest, I used to think every poem should sound like there was a man from Glentucket, and we'll let you fill in the rest. But it's different to that. There's different things. There's an education. But the biggest thing, Paul, and I'm going to get slightly political. The best thing that ever happened was there's this guy called Rob Butler in 1947 here, 1944 in the rest of the UK. He brought in what at that time was called the qualification exam that made everyone have the ability to go and get a grammar school education, which opened up everything, in my mind, to the world. You know, education allows everyone to become an equal, and I'm a big believer in that.
Yes.
And without Rob Butler, and it was actually that like government of the time that would have been lost. Now everyone goes on about, and I speak to teachers all the time, and some of them don't really like the grammar school system, but I think if you've got a chance to get there, and the more intelligent people get there, then the better it is for everyone. Here endeth my political statement for today.
Listen, do you know what your political statement is shared by a hell of a lot of people who talk about grammar schools and how important they are. You know what, and what have they done in terms of bringing grammar schools? Let's put this in context. What grammar schools did was it actually brought people who would have been deemed as being really low class, working class, you know, at the very bottom of even having that ability to go into education and achieve and bring them out of that, you know. And there's a lot of people, Dave, a lot of people have benefited from grammar education. And
absolutely.
Very much so. Very much so. And, you know, people will argue just now whether or not it's the right thing or whether or not it's the right thing to do. I know that grammar education was scrapped by the time I'd in Scotland. It was scrapped really by the time I'd got to school. I mean, I'm a young guy. You know what I mean? It's one of those perks. I mean, I didn't miss out on that Maggie Thatcher stealing my milk on me, like, but you know.
It runs too hard for you. It runs too hard. It's one of these things. But the problem, the reason why I like the grammar school system here is it's open for everyone. If you go back to where we're from, then your parents either pay for a private education or spend a fortune getting you into the catchment. Therefore, you need to buy a house that's worth £500,000 just to make, especially in Edinburgh. You know, I was speaking to a friend yesterday, and there's houses in Ratho on the outskirts of Edinburgh that are going for upwards of 600 grand. That's the starting price.
At Ratho, the village in the middle of freaking nowhere.
In Ratho, you mean there's nothing there?
There's a climbing frame and a train station in Ratho. That's it.
And the bridge in, but that's about it, you know. And you know, but there's nothing there. There's nothing there. 600 grand. Thank you very much.
Jesus. And do you know what? It'll just be a wimpy home. I'll just say that.
Either that or Miller's, one of the two. You never know.
Listen, we'll get you back in a couple of whiskies' time.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
Thank you. Here, this is what it's about. You know, here, if we're not having banter, we're losing the plot. So, Highland, Campbelltown, Speyside, Isla, back to Speyside. So that's our, you know, we had a duplicate there. Whoopie doo, who cares? And now we're going to go to Lowland. All right, so bottle number 6. So your bottle number 6 is a 19-year-old. So we've gone 16-year-old. We're up to 19-year-old now. So 19-year-old coming in at 52.4%. That's 52.4%. And an interesting barrel maneuver here. So distilled in 1999, again bottled in 2018. Lots of these bottled off in 2018, which is, you know, just a couple of years ago when I was really getting into my craze of buying lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of whiskey. I mean, I don't buy any whiskey anymore, surely. Of course. Yeah. And look, cask arrangement here is interesting. We've got first time we're using a bourbon hogshead, and then we're using a wine hogshead. So only 258 bottles from Auchentoshan Distillery. Again, this idea of maybe like triple distilled. There's a bit of a theme going on here. And also it sounds so Scottish, doesn't it? Auchentoshan. Auchentoshan. But there you go. From the Cadenhead range. 19 years old, 52.4%, Auchentoshan. As I say, bourbon hogshead, and then goes into some wine casks. Now let's think about this. Auchentoshan for me is 100% is 100% hit or miss. Now, and I have no issues putting Auchentoshan on the table ever to try to make So I'm going to say this: I found it hard to get into the core range of Auchentoshan. Found it very difficult to find my way through those. Even going up to this 21-year-old, I found it difficult to really fall in love with it. But what I would say is every independent bottling I've had of Auchentoshan, and in particular Auchentoshan that has cask strength whiskey in it, really, really stands out to me. And really, the triple distilled stuff really works well at cask strength. And a lot of that is, maybe to do with some of the caskings that it's been in. But look, I would like to think that Auchentoshan, the base spirit, is just superb. It's, we're talking about Robbie Burns and his influence in the world. Auchentoshan is a Scottish distillery with the influence of Ireland. It's influenced by, by an Irishman. And yes, Niall, yeah, the three wood. Look, the 3 wood. I'm not saying it. I'm just saying it. For me, sometimes it's just difficult. But I have no problems ever putting Auchentoshan on the table. Like, I have no problems with it. And I think it's a good one for Irish whiskey drinkers. It's nice to see some triple distilled whiskey here, because that's what we're used to here. We're used to triple distilled malts. We're used to maybe triple distilled, pot stills. But it's nice to see that. I don't think the Hazelburn loses any of its Scottishness by being triple distilled. The 3 wood is like the Bush 16, says Zoltan. Yeah, interesting. That's an interesting. I would like to do the side by side now. Now you even said that, I'll have to hook that out, the wee side by side tasting. Good to see you've joined us, Zoltan. Listen, thanks very much. Sláinte to you. Yeah. So look, what do we get in the nose? I'm getting a bit. I'm going to be very honest here. I'm getting like a kind of briny kind of note that I'm getting. Yep, I'm not getting as much of the kind of vanilla note I was going to expect there from that bourbon barrel that we're using. But I'm getting like briny, but it's more like, is it coming directly from a wine cask? That kind of nose that, when you would have wine, you'd be like, sometimes, I don't know, I'm not a massive drinker of wine, although I do know what wine I like to drink, and when I'm drinking it, I know what I'm eating with it as well. And I'm not one of those guys who just drinks wine for the crack. I'm sure there's a lot of people who just sip on wine daily, and good on them. But I'm one of those ones that would have wine with my food. And I'm thinking, I think it's hard. And the reason why I picked this one, and I hope like people can see that every one of these bottles, even though I've maybe not had them before, and I've not, apart from that 155, so far I've not had any of these before tonight, before we've drunk them. So I've not even tasted this one yet. I'm smelling it. But I picked this one because of the French cask influencing. So this wine cask is French wine cask, Chateau Lafite, which I believe is an expensive wine, especially wine casks that are being used here. Someone can correct me. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe they are. But what's the need to have wine cask influencing when we're talking about Robbie Burns? Well, sure, Robbie Burns is around when we've got big movement within France. Viva la Revolution, and destroying, the giving, I say destroying, but it's not. It's providing people with the opportunity to have representation, to be taken seriously, to have, do you know what I mean, all of those things in France. Not mean that they were screaming out for it, and then the whole of Europe is screaming out for. We're screaming out that serfdom be, eradicated, that the monarchy be held to account, that that democracy starts to take shape. So there's a direct reference from here, because actually I think Rabi goes on a lot about the power of the man, the providing man with the ability to control oneself, and have freedom of thought. So Rabi Burns encapsulates the freedom movement, the rebellion, the kind of all of that goes on, that we see throughout Europe. It's Enlightenment period. It's got it's got that aspect to it, and that's the only reason I've got this one here. I could have picked any Auchentoshan. They've got some, as I say, they've got some really nice independent bottles out there. We could have gone for some of them core range, but I thought, Lowland. I'm always going to go to Auchentoshan at the moment, although we have some really nice distilleries cropping up. The Bladnoch, which is a distillery which is booming just now. Again, Lowland Distillery, and we've got some new ones operating outside of Glasgow as well. But look, Auchentoshan is between. For those that don't know it, you come out of Glasgow, you head north as if you're heading towards, as I say, Campbelltown, and we hit Auchentoshan in the Lowlands. So on the nose, really not getting the bourbon. So this is now, the wood has now encompassed, this French wine cask has encompassed that bourbon. I don't get any of it, and it's a little bit, as I say, is it briny? Is it salty on the nose? It's definitely kind of got like a layer of kind of, if it is a fudge, it's not. Yeah, is it a fudge? I don't know. And that's a hard one, because it's not what I'm expecting from the Auchentoshan. I'm expecting the Auchentoshan to be, I suppose, slightly less offensive. And what I mean by it is I want it to be smooth, triple distilled Auchentoshan, your Scottish equivalent of the best Irish whiskey that you can give. And it's not. It's actually quite robust and full on flavour, full on strong and really rough actually, and more actually reflective of maybe a double distilled Scotch with that kind of edge that it has to it, a rough edge that it has. But in there we've got that fudge kind of element maybe comes back in a little bit. The fruity element it's tropical, but it's that kind of not nearly ripe tropical note that we've got. It's not. It's got a creaminess now to it, which is interesting. Not like a kind of. In fact, it's got a thick creaminess. The creaminess is definitely coming right through there, and I'm definitely getting like a saltiness, like a really salty fudge maybe note on it now. Dries out, and it dries in these cheeks, right up into the gum line. Not a lot of, even though it's alcohol at 52.4, doesn't feel alcoholic at the end. There's a lot of alcohol, I think, midway, not in the initial taste on the tongue, but midway. Yeah, it's actually really nice the way the alcohol just doesn't offend your front of your tongue, but it kind of sits on your tongue. Lots of sugar and sweetness, like really thick brown sugar, condensed and onto your tongue. But that saltiness, it's like that, and then there's a sour note. It's a really kind of strange sourness that goes on there. Again, I'm contemplating the fact that I don't get that from Auchentoshan's ever. It's not your normal, and I hope that people then don't go running out and buying Auchentoshan for the crack. But go and good to pick up the core range, good to pick up the 3 woods. But this is a different beast. This is really kind of Clon, with lots of certainly with lots of flavour. Yeah. People talk about wine casks. I mean, whether or not it's one of those. Is it good for whiskey to be in? I don't know. I know that we're really familiar with sherry. We're super familiar with sherry, and we're super familiar with port now. I think but all these other wine influences that are coming through. I mean, I'm a massive fan of Madeira. I've tagged on to this Marsala and Malaga and all these other, just to see different types of wine finishing is so interesting. And look, we've had a great variety this evening. We've touched lucky there with the PX and the port and the Sauternes. We've been very, very lucky. So this is a really, yeah. This is this is really nice. And I kind of say that without being like disappointed or over the moon about it, because as I say, I'm not a massive fan of Auchentoshan. I just don't get it all the time, and every time as I say, I'm not let down. But again, I'm surprised by it. This is nice. It's nearly. Is it my favourite Auchentoshan? No, probably not. Have a rum casking, which just blows every other Auchentoshan I've ever tasted out of the water, and indeed with many other whiskies. But this is nice. It has that. I told you it's like that kind of fruit that's not tropical fruit, which just isn't ripe yet. And I like that. It's got a sour note coming through, and I'm not sure what it is. If it's a minty kind of note, I'm not sure. I don't think so. I'm going to revisit it. I think we'll get a chat with some of the guys later on with that one, because it's not what I was expecting, And I'm kind of, the more I delve into it, the more I get like that sweetness. It's hard to explain, but like a big lump of sugar, which is just sitting on your tongue and soaking right through. And there is this really nice unripened fruit going on here. It's just not, I will come back to that. We shall come back. So, one more before we go for a bit of poetry. We're going to go for, what have we had? We had Lowland. What we're missing? We're missing Island. That's what we're going for. We're going to go for an island now. So we're going to go for a 19-year-old. We've got 19-year-old Aaron. Yeah. And 19-year-old Aaron, this comes in at 54%. And it is Fino Sherry. Fino Sherry. Wow. Okay. This will be interesting. Is it full Fino Sherry? Looks like it. Matured in Fino, yeah, Fino Sherry. Here we go. So, this, and I need another glass. I've just realised that I'd used a glass for something else. Give me 1 second till I grab another glass. That was me just throwing my glasses around, but here, I'm sure why not. Okay, so there we go. 19-year-old Fino Sherry, 54%. This one's coming from the Cadenhead range also. Yep. Arran Distillery. And I'll be honest, I like Arran Distillery. And I like, and again, I'm not going to shy away from the fact that I really like their whiskey. I tend to find that they are underrated. You know what I mean? And anyone who's been a member of our club knows that I'm a fan of Arran. We've brought to the table over the last 5 years plenty of Arran whiskey. You know what I mean? Plenty of it. Single cask stuff, yes. Some of the more kind of elusive kind of bottlings. So they had the punch bowl, the Devil's Punch Bowl range. Oh, that was sublime. But I like to source these independent bottlings. Although what I would say is that their core range, is really, is really good. Like their core range is spot on, and great price points. That not overly expensive for their core range. So okay, so bottle number 7. So bottle number 7. Island Arran whiskey. What's big about Arran whiskey? What the connection is? Again, I could have gone to any island, by the way. I could have headed up to Orkney, or we could have got something from some of the RB islands out there. And yet I went to Arran because Robbie Burns would have seen this in his eye line at certain times. Up and down that coastline. He'd have witnessed this. I think he's probably been on Arran. I'm going to assume he's been on Arran. Although, I was actually trying to find a real direct connection with him and Arran, but oh my god, that nose is nice. But do you know there's something familiar with the nose of the Auchentoshan? There's a familiarity there on the nose. Funnily enough, this one was bottled 2 years before, again, though at 19 years old. But the nose is similar. Right, okay, so... Oh, very light, isn't it, on the colour? Fino Sherry. There's a lot of sherry lovers out there, and they'll be able to tell me that why we have different names of sherries and what that means, and it's to do with, I'm probably going to show myself up here, but it is something to do with the quality of the sherry and how long it's been going through the process of the sherry, the making of the sherry specifically. And you know what? No doubt it's something to do with the lineage of the grapes and everything else. Potentially, I don't know. Someone will have to, come on and correct me. But there's something about when I think sherry casks, and then we've got the PX earlier, really spicy, really full-on spiciness on the tongue. This is not uber spicy. It's got a little bit of a spice on it. It's actually quite a nice wee spice. But it's not that. It's not the spiciness of the PX and maybe Olorosos. There's a bit of heat on it, but it's more condensed. It's a condensed kind of spice that you get the kind of one hit of the spice rather than it continuously going around on your tongue. Good to see Gerald popping in here. Excellent. And Zoltan, I'm just reading this comment here that was talking about it. Remember here side by side, but remember a little different. The Auchentoshan is a bit more robust. Okay, so previously a bit more robust, more Scotch-like, but the rubbery nose reminds me of a bit like an Intradur. Interesting, yeah. Simple. Connor, yeah, Fino's the driest and palest sherry and quite young. Well, there you go. That's the reason why. And again, I'm assuming that's why we don't have a lot of colour. It's not given those big kind of, orangey hues that we would get maybe from the Oloroso PX caskings, potentially. Okay, super. And yeah, young. So a young sherry was in the Fino, right? Okay. Is that Fino? Is that Fino? Does that mean young? I mean, unfortunately, I don't know the meaning of that word, but yeah, I like this. Although there's some familiarity here with this concoction. And is it like, what is that? 2 seconds. No one needs to. I think maybe. Just going to go back here. Sorry for the silence, but I need to drink that again. Money. Okay. Thank you, Connor. So it literally means fine sherry, right? And Zoltan, you know what? This is nice. I mean, you probably do want this. And it is. Do you know what? It's a step up, in fact, massive step up from its core range. But you're getting a DNA there of that Arn, which is a really, I'm going to say this, simple Scotch whiskey. Simple, easy to drink, really, you know, not like a pure kind of expression, because that's maybe the wrong kind of the way to describe Arn, but it's a very accessible Scotch whiskey, and in fact, for it to continually be overlooked, I think a lot of people kind of ignore it. You know what I mean? But you know, we tend to look at the bigger brands, the Highland Parks and the even the Aberlours and the Glendronachs. We go all tend to move over there, or we go straight to Islay. We drink ever from Islay, and we ignore Arran maybe. And yes, Connor, is a Cadenhead bottling. Yep, it's this one here. So Fino sherry cask. Yep. But this is a really. Do you know what? There's a lovely dryness to the mouth at the end. There's a lovely dryness. It's warm. It has a range of spiciness, which, as I said, it's concentrated. So it kind of just stays in that one spot. Once it reaches that point, it just stays. It stays there, and it continues just to linger. I could find myself drinking more of it, and I think that it's one of those ones that actually lends itself to having a really nice kind of creme brulee, even like it's like that, in the taste. It's a creme brulee all day long, and I really do like that. A little bit of lemon potentially in there. Yep, that kind of citrusy note that comes through, but it's even. It's not big and bold, but it's got substance to it. It's not like, I can smell these other ones sitting here, but I'm thinking, going backwards, this is not. It's very delicate in the nose. It's a lovely. You can tell where it's been stored. I mean, these guys take the guys at Camp Cadenhead take the different barrels from the different distilleries and do their own warehousing. But it's the influence here has that beautiful saltiness coming through, and a real lovely sweetness. No, not too much, and a tiny little bit dryness towards the end, which is really nice. And I actually really like the way it opens like that. Anyway, 54% alcohol. It definitely comes across as having alcohol with it, but again, easy to drink. We could be drinking lots of that. Yeah, very delicate. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But it's concentrated, isn't it? It's concentrated, like on that one bit of your tongue. Now it just seems to just sit there and doesn't want to move. We're gonna bring Dave back in here, I think, because we're gonna move on to our another couple of duplicates. So we've been around Scotland. We've seen all of the regions, and we've had definitely lots of different cask finishes or cask influences. Dave, I'm going to bring you back in here. Here we go. We good?
Hi there, Paul. How are you?
I'm good.
It was really quite interesting that you were talking about going around Scotland, because everyone thinks of Robert Burns as he's this master poet, but he himself described himself as a musician. He played the fiddle, and he went round Scotland once he'd made a little bit of money. Now I'm a member of the Society of Antiquities in Edinburgh, and it's a thing that gets you into basically all the places where you have to wear gloves to have a look at stuff. And I've been looking at some of Robert Burns's kind of memorabilia and books and stuff. He really was interested more in music, but I actually think he was never this pauper. He was always a landed gentry. Who else could afford to buy a farm in Musgiel for £10,000 in 1786? You know, I mean, it's just not out there. That's not a boy that's a poor. You know,
he made his money. He made money at the time. He definitely made money while he was alive, didn't he?
Well, he sold his first book, poems chiefly in the Scottish dialect. There was only 610 copies ever made of that. 42 went on public sale. You know, it wasn't making lots. But the point I was going to try and make is he went this tour of Scotland, and he picked up over 600 songs and poems. So that's where you get the Auld Lang Syne from, and Aphon Kiss and all that sort of stuff. He picked them up. He was the main collector of Scottish songs at that time. He did 6 volumes for Macreash in Edinburgh, and that's really what his real love was for. So maybe that's just more interesting for some more than others, you know. I get into it. It's the same as another guy. You were talking earlier on about how he was into he was a very complex character that had different ideas at different times. Obviously, he was a nationalist, and I maybe have his sympathies for that, and will not go much further along these lines. But he also formed his own battalion of the militia in Dumfries and paid for their own uniforms to defend the kind of Dumfriesshire against John Paul Jones, the father of the American fleet, the guy who actually came from Kirkcudbright, who basically was a pirate and came to ransack the UK on a trip over from America. So he's a complex guy that obviously wanted independence in one hand, thought of equality and fraternity with a man's a man for all that, but still wanted to be part of the establishment, being an exciseman and building his own militia. But there you go. What do I know? I know nothing, Paul.
It's not that you know. No, he is such a complex figure, though, isn't he? But I class him as being probably the most iconic. You know, if you say Scotland, and you say someone in the arts, you have to, he'd have to be in the top of the list. He'd have to be in the top of the list of someone who has somehow managed to influence so many people, and his writing specifically. Although I agree with you, Dave. I think it's all about music. I think he wants them sung. I think he wants that stuff, sung, to crowds. He is an influencer at the time, not just now.
Absolutely.
He's an influencer. His best friends are artists as well. His best friends are artists. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. But I was going to say the best thing that ever he fell out with this guy called Dr. Corrie, and Dr. Corrie wrote this piece about him in the Dumfriesshire Press, roughly 10 years after he died. And he was basically slagging him off to all and sundry because he was due him money in a bet, and that became the the kind of the Bible for everyone to quote Burns on. So this was a man who was poor. This was a man who was a philanderer. You've also got to remember at the time that basically there's no TVs at that time. So basically all you could do was go and visit young ladies around the parish, you know. But that's, again, another story.
No, he's a flirt. You know, he's a flirt. He doesn't let, you know, he doesn't shy away from the fact that he appreciates women. I don't think he shies away from that, you know. But he you know what? Am I right in saying that he addresses court? That he addresses, you know, he addresses court. Am I right? You know, so he you know, for one of his friends would be James Naismith, painter. Yeah, he gets involved in, you know, going to Edinburgh specifically to royal court. Am I right?
You know, it went, well, basically it was just at the time of the new town being built, and he was very friendly with a guy called Glencairn, Earl of Glencairn, and he was his sponsor, as it were, when he went round everywhere. He introduced them to the polite society, and we used to go there and go into the parlours and the drawing rooms of the landed gentry and perform his works. But then he preferred to be down again in the likes of the toll booth or wherever it may be, eating the oysters and drinking the claret with the common man, you know. But he could speak to everyone. He could speak to everyone.
Yeah, he's got.
However,
I want you to do a wee toast, the wee Timorous
Beastie.
And this is the whiskey we're going to be drinking after you sing it. But this is the reason why, because we have a lovely wee Scottish whiskey here, Timorous Beastie. But yeah, look, I want to hear it because to me it's my favourite. But that's just
fantastic.
Pretty simple that way.
I was actually in his first book as well, so there you go. It's got age and levity to it. To a mouse, we sleek it, Coorn Timorous Beastie. Oh, what a panic's in thy breastie. That needn't start away so hasty with bicker and brattle. I would be loath to run and chase thee with murder and prattle. I'm furious sorely for man's dominion, this broken nature's social union, and justifies that ill opinion which makes us startle at me, thy poor earth-born companion and fellow mortal. I doubt nae whiles thou mayest leave that then, poor beastie, thou maun live, and Damien Icker with the thrave say small request that I am blessed with a lave that never missed. Thy wee hussy, to and ruin, thy silly would win are strewn, the Nathan now a newen, and forge and green, a bleak December winds ensuing, baith snell and keen. Thou say fields laid bare and waste, and weary winters coming fast, the causes here beneath thy blast thou thought to dwell, till crash the cruelest coulter past, or through thy cell. Thy wee bit heap of leaves and stable, that cost thee money and weary nibble, thou turned out for thy trouble, but house or haunt, to throw the winter's sleeky dribble, Cashewn called. But missy, thou art no so lane, thy proven foresight may be vain, the best laid schemes of mice and men, gang after glory, and leaves us now with grief and pain for promised joy. Still thou art blessed compared with me, thy present only toucheth thee, but I'm backward taste a knee on prospects dear, and forward thou I cannae see a guess of fear. To a mouse. Thank you very much.
To a mouse indeed. Sancha. Well, I'm liking that. No, I really like that. That poem just says so many things. It takes you on a journey from imagining what he has noticed and his recollection of the world around him at this point in time, maybe about the stature between humanity, nature, the purpose of man, and yeah, I think you know, it speaks volumes of social mobility. For me, it's it ticks every one of his. You know what? Ticks every one of his kind of philosophies in one poem, really. Out of all of the poems, I think that's the one that encapsulates him and his, ethos and his, I suppose maybe his aspirations, because I don't ever think he fulfilled his aspirations. Just like everyone, I don't think we ever fulfill our aspirations. But I think that he's that to me sums him up. He's got these mad at this point in time, and in his lifestyle, he's got mad ideas.
Sorry, I was going to say, sorry, Paul. As you know, I now I'm not working there just now because everything's shut. But the Seamus Heaney Home Place, we have this theatre, and I meet lots of poets that are doing the rounds. I meet lots of people trying to punt books, and I've met many different people. And I always go out there and introduce them, and I speak to them, and I get every one of their books, and I read their books, and some of it's good, some of it's bad. For the guys who they always talk about these legends that are out there, these geniuses, and they're very few and far between, can I tell you? But what the great people do have, I think, is this photographic memory. So the way in which Burns there is able to describe what he saw when he was a 12-year-old laddie ploughing in the field. He never wrote that till probably 12, 14 years after the event.
Yeah.
Yet it's like, it's in his mind, it's like a photograph. He has this photographic memory, and he can describe it in a manner that you and I would not, well, myself, would never have the ability to be able to even pull it aside and think like that. So, genius is cast around a lot of people, but I think he was truly one of them, and he has the ability, as you so rightly said, to bring in a whole different meaning to what you're trying to do.
And totally. And I think that it's at this point in life, at this point in the world and society and everything else, some people have been listening to this and thinking it's very dangerous. The type of attitude to have here can be a very dangerous attitude. I know he's questioned at several points about his loyalty to the United Kingdom stroke to royalties. He's questioned, and he's questioned then in his own life, and he's continuously questioned throughout his life. Post his life, and people try to understand him. And I think a lot of people, and this is why you have critics of Burns, don't you? You have critics who will argue the point. I mean, I've watched critics argue about Robbie Burns as two different people, as if he was, 2 or 3 or 4 different types of people. He's not. He's a complex man who, at all times throughout his writing and his song and the music that he's trying to convey, this, he is a man of many, as I say, aspirations and an intelligence level which is beyond, people of his day. Do you know what I mean? It's beyond, even those that are educated, Dave, the people who are educated around him, that he's having to play for, as it were. I need to show off. Listen, these people they might be gentry, but some of them just don't have it up here.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? They don't maybe even understand what he's all about, and but it is the arts understand them. There's as I say, the friends that he has within the art societies and those kind of movements, they understand them. They're full of them.
But there's several things you've got to remember, and this is getting kind of technical. He was born in 1759, which was just 14 years after the last rebellion, after the last, the Bonnie Prince Charlie's last stand. Sedition was still there. People were still going to the colonies as slaves. People were still getting moved over to Australia in bondage. So he used to, and this is where I think he was part of the landed gentry, because he was schooled by his father. His father owned his own land, which even in Scotland today, over here in Northern Ireland, you had the Gladstone Land Reform Act of the 1901, 1903. Scotland still does not have a right to buy. I'm getting maybe exactly when Zoltan, when Guinness was established, exactly the same age, but his father paid for his education, and he used to write under pseudonyms in papers. and that's where he was doing most of his kind of nationalist Scottish stuff. But he knew he had to play the game, so that's why he did the other side as well. He was maybe speaking, maybe it's a trait from some, I was going to say from over here, where people speak out of the both sides of their mouth at the same time, you know. But who knows? Who knows?
A year, you know what? There's interesting people in history. You know, when you look back, particularly in Scottish history, I think there's some characters out there that really shape, I suppose, national identity. He's created Scotland's national identity nearly by himself in some respects. As you know, yes, look, do we have this nationalist approach? Of course there's a nationalist approach to some of his writing. It becomes, you know, as a nationalist, you can pick on Robbie Burns all day long and he'll be your best friend. He'll be your companion in the fight for nationalism. Some will say that he's slightly unionist in some of his writing, and actually falls out a little bit, you know, with Scottish gentry, and falls out with Scottish nobles, and maybe looks towards a unionism slant. But I think what we get here is we get one person who is a massive influence on Scottish revivalism at this point. So, you know, we do talk about, you know, just prior to this, you know, we have, you know, mass execution and slaughtering of Scots, a quell of the Scottish culture, indefinitely, and you know, he's part of a and again, looking at other people in and around these kind of, the same kind of period, going around painting parts of Scotland, showing off Scotland to, you know, Scotland is the most beautiful place ever. Fact. And those pictures are being sent around the world, you know, framed up, sent away. Do you know what I mean? His message is being told far and wide across Scotland. It reminds me that there's no harm to being educated, and I think that's one of the things that's really interesting. William Wallace, I always hark back to William Wallace, right? People think I'm mental, right? But I always, when you talk to people who are not from Scotland, and you say William Wallace, yeah, great Braveheart, that was brilliant. Do you know what I mean? Love watching it. Made me want to be Scottish for 5 minutes. Of course it did. Makes you want to be Scottish. It makes you want to go out there and take blood from every Englishman ever said something wrong to you. Do you know what I mean? But that's a film. William Wallace is an interesting example of this. Someone who is educated, and yet you have this different, somehow people have this different kind of vision of him. You know, William Wallace was super educated, went to university, you know, educated by the bishops, you know, and the Catholic clergy in Aberdeen. You know what I mean? Paid for. You know what I mean? Part of you know, William Wallace was the establishment. William Wallace was a full on lord of his own land, and yet he's the rebel. He's the thorn in the side of people, and yet he is the, you know, for a lot of people, he's just the local bloke who is like proper muscular, and he's going to take the fight to English. He's a lucky fella. He spoke many languages. I believe he spoke Latin, French. Do you know what I mean? You know, very well educated, was able to manipulate people to come on board with him. And when he started going around and getting the you know, he's a problem. I suppose, you know, he's a problem. He's got to unite people in Scotland who have their vested interests. One, because it's, you know, Scotland at that point with William Wallace starts to become prosperous for certain people, you know, who are not part of the establishment. They start to become prosperous. But then you've got two issues: clan system and gentry and gentry. You've got those two who are already kind of ignoring each other because there's a political divide across the country at different points, you know, and that religious divide that he had to like conquer. You know what I mean? People don't get that with William Wallace, and it's the same. You know, they don't get this educated fellow who's able to bring about change, you know, because he's educated, not just because he can hold a sword and slaughter people. He's very good at that, yes, because he's super, but he's actually probably one of the most intelligent people that Scotland's ever produced. And again, Robbie Burns, what he does with the pen, you know, is remarkable. You know, what he's able to, you know, again, convey even to this day, that it rings true, that all of that passion, all of that energy, all of that, you know, inspiration and aspiration that then he has rings true today. And I just want people to, respect them, read it, go and have a read at some of his stuff, and understand it, soak it all up, very interesting fellow.
There's one other person that's had a great influence on what Scotland really is seen by the rest of the world, and that was Sir Walter Scott. Sir Walter Scott basically invented the tartan. He invented everything else. It was for King George. I think it was King George IV trip to Edinburgh in 1804. It was 1804, 1824, one of the two. I can never remember. But that's how in Edinburgh you've got Hanover Street and George Street and Frederick Street and all the Hanoverian kings and queens. And your friend, my Irish speaking, is
Connor. It's just Connor. Yeah, Connor. Yeah.
Connor's quite correct. There used to be this theatre company in Scotland called, was it 784? 7% of the population own 84% of the land,
And it's simply is true. I mean, it's still the truth. I mean, the big thing, I suppose, is that because the concentration of populace in Scotland live within the main four cities, so
Correct.
And it's concentrated. And you know what? One thing Scotland has, which is now better than England, and maybe even better than here, I'm not 100% sure, but in Scotland, you can buy the land and the piece of land, and you no longer have to lease the land. England, though, you still have.
Are you sure?
Yeah, Scotland.
Are you sure you
can
can buy it? But they got rid of there was a few duties. There was but the few there used to be few duties, and they were mostly owned by the church. The church owned huge amounts of. Church of Scotland owned massive amounts of land. That actually got brought out in the 1970s, and I know, Paul, that's like the dark ages to you, my friend. But it's not that long ago. Not that long ago. And you used to have to pay every year on your mortgage. I mean, it's a bit before my time too, owning a house there in the 70s, but I was around there. And you had to pay a certain amount. It might only been £5 a year, something like that, maybe £10 a year. But if you take all the tenements, and there was maybe 12, 14 houses in every tenement, and they're getting one from everyone in the street, it's a lot of money. And you bought yourself out of that.
No, you're right.
You're right.
I think that is now. I think it's now changed. I mean, you have less leasehold than you do now freehold. So freeholds now. I mean, you buy a house now in Scotland, and it comes with freehold. You're guaranteed the piece of land that you live on and the sky above you. But I think here, and what I'm noticing is there's a new move, and there's a new move because that was a lucrative business for landowners to charge the rent capacity on all of those different pieces of property. So you have that new movement here, and I've seen it here in Northern Ireland, where the estate I live in, we have to pay a factoring fee for an estate, and I'm like, that's the same thing. Cut
your grass.
Cut my grass. I have no grass for you to cut. Don't be cutting my grass. It's that's taken us back to people. Being, not having the freedom to do what they want with their own properties. So there's a lot of covenants now. I've noticed in a lot of new builds, that you have to look very carefully at those covenants that have been put in, and they are taking us backwards. They are taking us back, to that period. But you still have a massive amount of land because it's land. The people who own land in Scotland, they are super wealthy people. And actually, and just to help Connor out there, the people who used to own land in Scotland, so going back into that kind of period, anything between the 1600s and the 1800s, that kind of period, maybe even just before that, the people who own land in Scotland were the same people who own land in London, and they were the Scots. So the Scots owned the land in London and in Scotland. They were the landed gentry of Scotland and England. These are the same. They were one and the same. The Lord Argyll, would own like I don't know, 2 square miles in London.
The Duke of Sutherland owns the vast majority of the land. I'll tell you one wee thing. And I'm gonna apologise now. I'm gonna apologise now. So if anyone is really offended, I apologise now. But 25 years ago tonight, I was at a Burn supper. And there was Lord Bruce. I was playing the pipes and addressing the haggis. Lord Bruce and the Duke of Sutherland, and I'm on the top table with these guys. I've got no idea. These guys could be my grandfather. You know, they're that much older than me. I have no idea how I got there. I'm sitting in this place and I'm doing this stuff. And I turned around. I was getting bored. And I said to the Duke of Sutherland, you know, I'm having a whiskey, getting a bit kind of full and getting stuff. And I said, sir, you must do a bit of shooting in your estates, obviously. He goes, yes, I do bits of estates. I said, listen, tell me, have you ever seen a startled moose? And he goes, no. I said, can I show you? And he goes, what? And I went, what the fuck was that? What the fuck was that? And he went pure mental at me, going, that's not funny at all. That's not funny. And then I went away and thinking, oh, that maybe never went down too well. About half an hour later, him and Lord Elgin are standing at the bar, and he's going to him. So I'm going, cracked it. Not that I'm a big royalist or a big man for the wealth.
No.
But I thought that was kind of funny. On the Duke of Argyll.
Spot on, Dave. Spot on. Listen, look, I'm going to finish up. We've got an hour two.
Yeah, you've got the whiskey to finish, and I've been keeping you too long.
No, don't be daft. Listen, I've really appreciated that. If you want to come back on again, you let me know. Put your wee hand up, and we'll get you back on. But listen, I've really appreciated that, Dave. I really have.
Crack on. I'm enjoying the last two now.
Good man. Speak to you soon.
Bye, guys. Bye. Thanks very much for your help. Bye.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. Oh, that was super. So yeah, look, apologies. I was drinking that while we were listening to the wee poem. But yeah, sorry. So I didn't introduce it properly. So this is the Timorous Beastie. It's a blend. Now it's a blend of only single malts. Okay. Highland single malts. Okay. So Highland blend malt. Okay, there you go. Highland blended malts. Sherry casks only. Minimum 21 years of each of the single malts that are in there blending up. Okay, comes in at 46.8%. Douglas Laing. So Douglas Laing, Timorous Beastie range, 21 years old, all sherry cask influencing, nothing else there other than sherry casks. Yeah. And the wee mousey, the wee Timorous Beastie. And that's why I love this. I love their range. Douglas Laing have a great range of blended whiskies, and they're always blended malts. There's no grain in here, so they're all blended malts. They've got Lowland malt. They've got a Lowland blend. Sorry, they've got a Islay blend, Big Pete. They've got the Lowland one's Epicurean. They've then got a Speyside. They've got an island one as well. So Scallywag, I think, is Speyside, and then they've got Oyster, Rock Oyster. You can get used to be called for the Highlands, and this is the Highland one. Really, really, really good mix of some really fine Scottish malts in here. And for those that have got it, this is a sherry bomb. This is super. I mean, 21 years old, minimum amount of malts in here, all 21 years old and above. I think that's great. And I'm liking the fact they've gone from non-age statement right the way through to, at the moment, 21 years old. But yeah, the alcohol content slightly less than what we're being used to. But at 46.8%, I think this is great. The nose is just so robust. Do you know what? Heavenly. I'm not going to shy away from this. This is one of my favourite all-time Scotch whiskies. And I don't care that it's a blend. And I think that people need to be not pretentious and get with the blends, Oh yeah. It's just got sherry written all over, but it's not just that. It's so big and bold. The heat's just right, and it's not got a super long finish. The finish is, slightly. I suppose it kind of maybe if that's the imbalance of it all, it should be longer maybe it wants to be longer. I think the amount of alcohol I've been drinking so far, it is, and what I've seen, in terms of, the longer finishing, it maybe comes up a little bit short, but it really holds its own as a blend amongst all of these single malts. It definitely does that. We'll see what people think as maybe their favourite of the evening. Yeah, I'm going to bring on, I think Louise is there. If Louise wants to come on and she can, does she want to come on? Did she want to put her hand up? I didn't know if she wanted to come on. Was that your hand up? Right, okay, that's dead on. We'll bring her on. But yeah, I hope people really enjoyed that one. So that was bottle number 8. Timorous Beastie, 21 years old. I could drink that all day long. In fact, if I started on that at dinner time, I would be drinking that all night. That bottle would be gone. It's just, I'm a big fan of sherry influenced whiskies, and I think that's a standout. Right, I'm going to bring Louise on. Let's have a look. Okay.
Hi, Paul.
Yes,
hi,
Louise, you're there. Yes.
Yep. How have you been enjoying?
What do you make of the big Timorous Beastie?
Do you know what? Timorous Beastie is one of those whiskies that we would tend to have quite a lot at Belfast Whisky Club, and it's always one that I do genuinely enjoy. But that one, I think, is one of my absolute favourites. Just as you said, really, really robust, great on the nose.
Yeah.
Really, really loving that. But it really delivers on flavour as well. I mean, that's one of the things that I would say about Timorous Beastie. It really delivers every time.
Doesn't it? It doesn't let you down, and we have tasted. Yeah, so I mean, within the club, we've gone through the range. Really, I think we've tasted all of the range so far. And there's not been a bad one.
Yeah,
to date,
totally
they've all scored pretty damn well within the club. And they're well accepted. Yeah, I think. Do you think it stands up well against the rest of the malts tonight, the single malts?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I think one of the things I would say about Timorous Beastie, it's one of those whiskies that I can really differentiate from the crowd. Like, whenever you're trying a Timorous Beastie, you do recognise it. It does have that kind of DNA. And based on what I've had tonight, I mean, yeah, like I think age statement wise, it lives up to your expectations of what you would expect it to be, because sometimes with the older whiskies, you have that expectation that you expect it to be a certain thing, and then when you try it, it can be somewhat underwhelming. Whereas very much with the Timorous Beastie, it delivers. I mean, it doesn't matter whether it's one of the maybe younger whiskies in the range, or whether it's what we're having tonight, but every single time it delivers. Whether it be a youngish whiskey and you go, do you know what, that's actually really good, versus an older age statement where you're going, yeah, that hits the mark of what I would expect it to be. Like, it delivers every time.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're enjoying that. I definitely think it's well worth. It's well worth waiting for as well. I think it's one of those, we're kind of going around the whole of Scotland, tasting everything, and it's no harm to come back to the Highlands. So our first taste of the Highland there was the Wolfburn. Non-age statement, single malt, influence with the port cask, but this is pure on, sherry influence, and it's not uber spicy. It's not that uber spicy sherryness. It's definitely not that.
Nicely balanced. It is really, really nicely balanced, and I think when you refer back to the Wolfburn, I mean, I was on the Belfast Whisky Club tasting whenever we got to try the full range, and I do think there's a lot of potential in Wolfburn. Like, I'm liking what they're doing at the moment, but as you say, they're a relatively young distillery. I think there's a lot more to come from those guys, and I'd be interested to see what the whiskey's like, in the next couple of years, because I think there's a lot of potential there.
Yeah, they definitely have one of the best ambassadors. Am I right? They have one of the best ambassadors out there.
He's so good. He's such good fun.
Mark Westmoreland is on point.
Yeah,
he is on point, and do you know what? I hope he's ready for this year's festival, because he's telling me he's 100% on board, and he's going to be doing some fun stuff. So we're looking forward to Wolfburn and what they've got coming.
Well, that's the thing.
Listen, we'll keep on here while we do our last one. So we're going to do our last one. Yeah, so we're going to the last one. It's bottle number 9. It's going back to Islay. We're going back to Islay, and we're looking at a Bruichladdich. So looking at a Bruichladdich, we're looking at a 22-year-old Bruichladdich coming in at, let me just have a look here, 51% alcohol. It's part of the Valinch series. So these are bottles that are done. The Laddie Valinch are bottles that are done and really only released at the distillery. They shouldn't be released anywhere else. Sometimes, you'll see them secondary sites and elsewhere, but these are done at the distillery. So 22 years old. This one is using a rum finish. So I was a massive fan of rum finishes. People know this, so that's why I've left it to the very end. We're going to go for the rum cask. So bourbon cask to start with, and then enhanced in a Guyane rum cask. For those that know, I've also been to Guyana, so it's kind of has a, for me, it has a bit of a, a connection, but it's also a connection to Rabbie Burns. So I think Dave touched on it slightly. At this point in Rabbie Burns' life, we've got people being shipped off, around the freaking world. Particularly to Dave, do you want to come in? Oh, Dave, hold on. We'll bring Dave in. 2 seconds, Dave. We'll bring in. We can add you to the stream. Sorry, Dave. Go ahead. Oh, I've muted you. There you go. Dave, you have to unmute yourself. There you go.
I'll unmute myself now. His brother Gilbert actually was a slave. I think he owned a slave in Jamaica, which is where he was going if he didn't actually was successful with his first book, the Kilmarnock edition, Poems Chiefly in the Scottish Dialect, which is, how you become, complex characters. But I just thought I'd throw that in when you're talking about going to the rum drinking places.
Just right. I mean, look, you can stay there, Dave. I mean, look, Guyana is one of those countries where, was constantly being, invaded by the European powers, we have, part of that country was split up as French Guyana, and then we have British Guyana. And yeah, you would have had people getting sent out to the West Indies, out to Australia, all over the place. And slaves, Scottish slaves, sent
Absolutely.
out. Not people just emigrating for the crack and trying to get better in life. No. Sent as slaves. And people talk about black slaves as if like that was the only and has only ever been the one type of slavery in the world. And yet we forget about Irish slaves, we forget about Scottish slaves. And look, I'm sure there was a vast amount of European slaves at some point as well. But the sad fact about, I suppose the sad fact about Scottish slavery is that even for some slaves from Scotland, they were promised a better life, and yet once they were on those boats, that was the end of it,
Well, a lot of them got the option either to be killed or be sent and never go back again. That was the deal, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But
no, and you know what? I suppose we had some real. You have the Dalriada failure, don't we? We had that big failure of.
Well, but if you actually look into, I mean, I'm getting very political now, but King William, who had a wee dalliance over here, shall we say, was the man who actually said to the Scottish noblemen, if you actually bail out the Scottish into what is now, is it Puerto Rico, or is it the Dalriada stuff, if you actually bail them out and put the money back in, then you will lose all your lands, you will lose all your titles, you will lose everything. So that's who stopped that. However, again, that's just, you've got to read these things with a white gloves on.
Totally, Dave.
Anyway,
listen,
it's more a whiskey than a history. It's more a history podcast than a whiskey podcast tonight.
This is what these conversations are for. I don't know about you, Dave, if you're on the last one, if you're drinking it, but this is rum influenced, whiskey. So big, 22 years old, 51% alcohol, bourbon cask to start with, but that rum influence, that is petrol on the nose. You
were talking about the Malt Whisky Society earlier on. I met my wife in the Malt Whisky Society in Edinburgh.
Oh, the vaults.
Down the vaults. In fact, when I had a wine business, Paul, and I used to use that because I used to use that as my office, and it was great. It was a fantastic place. But see, when you're obviously drinking, I like rum as well as whiskey, and some of the rums in there I can't remember. To be fair, they're quite easily done with the sugar syrup. But there you go. What more can you say?
Connor's making a good point. Yes, 100%. Cromwell deported 10,000 Irish and Scots to the Caribbean. Damn right. No, look, it's a depressing part of history. But I'm thinking, there's a lot of chat, and I'm all for. I'm actually, I had a big argument recently, and I hope people don't take this too extreme. I had a big argument about the positive role that Britain played in ending slavery. But a lot of people get on about, Brits, the worst slavers ever. Yeah, they were. But some of the politicians that then fought to end slavery, were British politicians. They were they had some good ideas, And saying that slavery existed then. Slavery still exists, and it's absolutely terrible that we're in a position whereby slaves are being moved around countries, for the pleasure of others. To be work. You know what? One of the biggest. I mean, I'm not going to name and shame people, but there's a massive slave movement from likes of South Asia into parts of Middle and Eastern Asia. Do you know what I mean? That movement of slave trade is huge right now, and it's for everyone to see. It's clear cut what has been done between those governments, and it's governments that are trading up people as slaves. You know what I mean? And look, North Korea gets a bad rep. Fucking right it should. You know what I mean? Because it's because of what it's doing there just now. Supporting industries in other countries by forcing their people to leave their homes and travel hundreds of thousands of miles to go and work for nothing because the money comes straight back to their country. Terrible. And people are literally, people are getting caught up about the fact we had slave trading going on years and years and years ago. No, get caught up with the fact that we have it right now. And if you're going to bother your whole discussing and crying about the fact that we had it, make a fucking damn bit of change to what can go on just now. Why would people go to a World Cup in the middle of frickin' nowhere when it's been built by slaves? Who the hell? I mean, I'd be being very political, but I tell you what, I'd be wrong not to be. I'd be wrong not to be upset, and I would be doing Robbie Burns an injustice if I wasn't speaking my mind. I think, you know what I mean. So
you're right, but it's the traffickers. It's the traffickers as well that enslave people, and
yeah,
it's really horrendous where people. As Connor says, China's just playing the game, but you've got to hear as well, and people get sold into the sex slaves and all the rest.
Yes,
it's just absolutely horrendous. It sounds as if I've been all around the houses. I used to work in antisocial behaviour in Edinburgh City Council as well, and
we've had this discussion. Yes,
it's brutal. Right. It's absolutely brutal. What you don't see. It's quite horrendous when you've got people being trafficked. It's quite horrendous, and people, you've got to pay back your passport. You've got to pay back your passport, but you never can.
Absolutely heartbreaking. And look,
however, Louise is looking really, really interested there.
There's too many people that put blinkers on because it's not something that directly affects them. It's not something that they see on a day-to-day basis. They put the blinkers on and they ignore it. They say, well, it's not something that directly affects me. It's not something that I directly see. So they don't want to acknowledge it. They put their blinkers on, but that doesn't mean that it's not happening. And it doesn't mean that it shouldn't be something that isn't addressed.
No.
It needs to be spoken about. It needs to be put out there in that mainstream. People need to be made aware that this is something that is happening.
Exactly. I think
I was going to say, the worst that I find about it all is they're actually basically sold into slavery by their own people, and that's even worse. I find that if you can't you know, we in Belfast, us Scots in Belfast, try and look after our own when they're over here. We try and help each other out. I cannot for 1 minute ever think of me trying to enslave one of my fellow countrymen. And if you do, it's a very harsh, very, very, very sad state of affairs.
No, you're just totally right there, Dave. I'm going to bring Niall. Niall, do you want to come back in for a bit? Are you okay? No, he wants to come. He's not sure. Oh, he is sure he's going to come in. Okay.
Sure, why not?
No, I think. No, sure, why not? But I think, look, I think it's interesting because, look, Robbie Burns, and this is what it's about him. It's about everything. But I tell you something. You know, Robbie wants to have these conversations. He wants to have them then. He wants to have them now. He wants to talk about this. He wants to talk. You know what he wants to talk about? He wants to talk about humans having the right to have self-choice, to self-determination, to have those things. And yet, we are living. We just haven't got to that point yet.
Yeah.
We're still living in a world controlled by a few.
But it's a travesty that we live in a society today that should provide those opportunities for everyone, and yet that is not the case. And that is a complete travesty that we are faced with that today, because given the situation that we are in the UK and further, I mean, there's absolutely no reason why that shouldn't be something that is open to all, but it's not.
True.
Yeah, no, very much so. Very much so. And I have no problems in calling out the Chinese and what they're doing there either, so fair play, Connor, for mentioning that. But look, it's not just that. There's I think the best like toast to Robbie Burns is us being able to have that discussion. Do you know what I mean? And being able to highlight anything that's to do with the injustices that maybe he even saw back then. Yeah. Now, did you enjoy your whiskey? What was the last? Sorry, Louise. What was the last one like?
No, I was just going to say, I think, Robbie Burns would want us to look at things globally. It's not just about what's happening within our local communities and the UK, but further afield. And having that strength of character to be able to call out what's happening on a global scale, like we live in a world where we are connected globally, where we can see what is going on globally. So it's exactly what we should be doing. Like we should be calling out those things.
No, 100%, Louise. Now, do you like the last one?
Yep, definitely.
I can't hear you now, but you're not on mute.
Hello. All right.
I can hear you.
Good. Yeah, excellent. It's been a good lineup.
Good. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Now that's important that you've enjoyed it. And again, I don't want you bragging when you're speaking to the likes of Robert, just give him a wee hint, gentle wee nudge and stuff. But yeah, I just think doing this tonight is really important. I think we got lots of whiskey out to lots of people. It was good to try and get people tasting lots of different. Again, it's different casks. I'm interested with different casks. We're doing this thing with the club just now. We're going round to different distilleries in Scotland. So it's not just Irish whiskey. I think this one was good because we got to go round the houses. Apart from the 21-year-old Timorous Beastie and that 155, I hadn't tasted the other 7. Do you know what I mean? Not in their kind of forms. So that was good for me. I'm liking that, just tasting new stuff, and I'm not being let down personally by any of it. I was pleasantly surprised by it. Dave, I'd like to get your opinion. I know that because Niall and Louise are both involved with the club. They drink whiskey on a daily basis now. I think it's like it's a daily thing for them to pick up a bottle of whiskey and just crack it open at lunchtime. But Dave, what about yourself? What do you make of the whiskies? What did you make of that tonight?
I liked your Wolfburn right at the beginning, and I liked and I liked the last one as well. I thought the last one, because I have a rummish kind of background. Those over here, I was brought up on OVD almost intravenously, and it's an old Vati Demerara, great stuff. Yeah. I used to call it the drink of the future, because you were making all these disco drinks, with the bottles, and they never touched dark rum. I was always deeply disappointed. So it's called the drink of the future, but it's got that undertones. It's got that nice. I find that there's a little bit of toffee sweetness to the end of the whiskey at the back. and
Totally.
suits my taste buds, you know.
Super. Oh, cool. Listen, Dave, I've really appreciated you come on. It's been great crack. Look, and I do mean this, and we've said it before. We love to do things in person. You're a great guy to be around. It's good fun, good banter when we've got you.
I have had a tremendous night, Paul. Hopefully, you've enjoyed. Everyone's enjoyed everything as well. The whiskies are fantastic. The box that came out with me today, I was most impressed, and thank you very much for including me in this.
It is a nice wee box, eh? And you've got your wee glasses.
It's fantastic.
Good.
Tell you, you've converted me. I mean, the only thing is, a school night is never good for me because, bit like yourself, one's too many and 10's not enough, you know. And you know, there's moderation, and I don't understand that terminology, and I think it's a trait of many. But I've enjoyed myself. Hopefully, everyone else has enjoyed themselves. The star of the show is obviously yourself, Paul, because you're able to describe. I've been taking notes as well of all the different whiskies that we've been having. So, if I ever decide to go into your business, I'm taking all your notes with me. But fantastic knowledge that you have. I feel better educated tonight because of that, and thank you very much for your input and your knowledge.
Cheers, Dave.
It's been a great night. Thank you very much.
Oh, that's very kind of you. Thank you. And listen, genuinely looking forward to listening to you with the bagpipes again. I know we need to get you penciled in for next year, but I think, you know, hopefully you get a chance to play them again soon. And I know that, you know, you're going to be confined to.
I was explaining to Paul earlier on that I gave them to a friend of mine on the 8th of February last year, and then everything to basically fix for me. And then basically I've not seen him since. So hopefully he's still got them and he hasn't pawned them anywhere, because they're worth a few pennies. But I'm sure he will. I'm sure he won't have. And but we'll be back in the saddle again very shortly. Yeah. But it's nice to speak to everyone. Nice to see them.
Dave, have you got many plans?
Carry on.
Have you got many plans for the St Andrews Society this year, or what's the?
Well, as you know, funnily enough, we were talking about education. I'm very proud of the fact that we've started the scholarship at Queen's University for Scottish students who have come over here, and we hand out a scholarship every year to one lucky recipient. So we do fundraising for that. So everything, as you know, Paul, is just basically ground to a halt.
Yeah.
We normally have kind of golf days, we have Cayleys, we have burn suppers, we have the big night in St Andrews day, which this year we haven't been able to do. But hopefully when the vaccine comes on board and everyone's back into the party mode again, we'll get out there again. Seeing you, and I always wanted to do this, but we should have a whiskey tasting and get everyone down to support yourself as well, because I think this is fantastic. I think the knowledge that you're giving on the 9 different whiskies was great, and we'll get that lined up as well for you to do something for us as well. If that's okay with you.
100%, yes. Looking forward to that. Dave, I'll take you off just now and listen. You can listen in the background and you can do what you like. I'm going to have a couple more minutes on here and then we'll be done anyway. But Dave, thank you.
Be delighted. Been a pleasure, and thanks again, and we'll speak to you soon, and good night everyone, and hope you enjoy the rest of your whiskies in full. Shiri Maha. I've obviously had too many of them now, so I'm speaking pish. Cheers now, guys. See you on.
Cheers, Dave.
He's good crack. He's good. And you know what? He wasn't pished. Oh my god. No, we've seen Dave pished. I've seen Dave pished. We have seen that in real life. He's good pished. You know what I mean? So that's good. Cheers, Connor. Yeah, listen, good night. Yes. Any downfalls? Anything that you'd be like, no, I would take that out and I'd throw it down the sink? No, nothing that would be.
No, I'd say all 9 were fantastic. I mean, usually whenever we would have a whiskey club tasting, there's maybe 1 or 2 that's a little bit questionable. Interesting to try, but you wouldn't necessarily go back to it. But I'll be honest, I'd be more than happy to revisit all 9 of those again, because I really enjoyed them. And great kind of diversity in flavor profiles as well, which is really good to see as well. So no, I really enjoyed them.
Yeah, I'm blown away by that Hazelburn. Like, I'm just
Good.
Was it your favorite?
Nose on that, yeah.
Tonight, tonight is a toss up. I think between the Hazelburn, that Bruichladdich is stunning, and
You love your rum casks.
Yeah,
can't go wrong with that rum cask.
I love rum as well. Like I love my rum. I love my rum cocktails, and that one's really good.
I really like the Islay, the Cool Islay. Cool Islay would be nice. Yeah, that would be. You know, those three are definitely for me stand out, but. I haven't found a bad one. I think, you know, challenging, if I've got a challenging one, I would maybe have to go back to the Auchentoshan, but even then, it's not either. I really like it. And the more I went to it,
I liked it.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying, but to me, it's just, out of all of them, that's the one, if I was to have to go back and be maybe critical, I'll probably go back there and try and like work it out more. The rest,
I didn't get a lot from the Auchentoshan.
Yeah.
It was a tricky one.
Yeah,
the Longmorn was excellent, I thought.
Oh, I love the Longmorn. It was
it was because I was not. You're not expecting from the Longmorn. I mean, let's be honest. You don't expect
that was
spiciness, do you?
Very, very good.
No, what Longmorn has that spiciness? That PX finish is making it really spicy. So listen, I've had great crack. Thank you very much for you guys that joined us. There's obviously loads of other people that have come in and joined us and who are doing tastings, which is great. So thank you very much for that. And I think it's been lovely having a big commentary. I really look. To be honest,
what we do, it's a sense of community amongst everybody. Like I love the fact that everyone wants to get involved, discuss whiskey. Like there's such a strong sense of community, both in terms of Irish whiskey and Scottish whiskey, and it's great to get everybody together virtually and just like talk about what we love, discuss the whiskies, try them. It's brilliant. We still get to do this.
I had about, I don't know, maybe 10, maybe it was a wee bit more, but roughly about 10 different people from outside of Ireland who wanted to do this tasting, and I just didn't have the turnaround time to get them into the box and get them shipped out in time for them. And they they'll be kicking themselves, you know, if they come on here and they've seen the commentary or they watch this at a later date. But look, I used 2 bottles of each. In one case, I actually used 3 bottles because it was a smaller bottling. So there are a couple of measures left now, which people can get hold of. But I think that, you know, and maybe I'll get them out to those foreigners at some point if I can. But they just couldn't join us for the live tasting. And I think that, you know, we've got, just to keep everyone in focus, you know, you're going to see plenty of tastings. So you've got every week now, starting 2 weeks' time. No problem, Zoltan. So in 2 weeks' time, you're going to see a tasting every couple of days, which is a very select amount of whiskey is going to be sent out to random people. It's just going to be randomised. It's not going to be. And yes, Kit, I will trim my beard. I'm thinking about what to do with it. I'm thinking about, you know, do I shave it off? Do I do or do I do, you know, like just this, or I don't know. But I need to do something. You're quite right. Kit Charles he's here for the banter. Like I like that.
It's not a whiskey tasting without Kit.
I know. But we've got for Paddy's weekend. So there's a 3-day Paddy's session, which are 3 different boxes. One of which has already been agreed. It's the Cologne lineup. So the 7 Colognes and 2 wee special numbers in there. And then there's
anyone that doesn't know Cologne, that will be one that will be well worth getting involved in, because
I think about
that Brendan comes out with it's on a whole different level. It's fantastic.
Then we've got a premium box which will include there's a couple of new releases now coming out of the Midleton Distillery, which will be going in there. And I haven't decided on the 3rd box, but it'll be great. Here for the Embassy Regal, came late, love the look. He's talking about you. Kit's talking about your look. So look, plenty to come, plenty to look forward to in the next couple of months. So listen, glad that everyone turned up, glad that everyone had fun, and listen, we shall see you all soon. Niall and Louise, cheers for coming on for the chat. Dave, really do appreciate what happened tonight. So, and if people in the future are looking out for an amazing He is amazing. He's a very good piper and loves his poetry. But listen, David Pratt, he is definitely one to look out for. Yes, and thank you very much. Cheers, Connor. Good night, everyone. Listen, thank you very much. See you all soon.
Thanks for having us, Paul.
No problem at all. Bye-bye.
Have a good night.